Hey, coffee and espresso lovers, Mark here from Whole Latte Love. If you're getting into home espresso, once you know a few simple basics, you'll be able to make drinks that are much better than what you can get at a cafe. So check out this encore presentation of our video, 5 Common Espresso Mistakes and Tips for Beginners. You'll learn about things like grind size, water quality, filter baskets, basic maintenance, and I'll even tell you how you might be able to make a barista's head explode. And during the premiere of this encore presentation, I'll be live in the comments to answer any questions you have on coffee and espresso techniques or equipment. Before we get to the video, a reminder that Whole Latte Love has the best selection of everything coffee and espresso. Plus our experts, they are passionate. They'll get you the advice and products you need, and the shopping experience at Whole Latte Love, check it out. Many products in 3D and augmented reality so you can see it on your countertop before you buy. And if you want to stand out from the crowd, use our customizer to add unique colors or wood components on select machines to create one that's your very own. Plus, you can bundle products for automatic savings and go to the sale page at Whole Latte Love for special Black Friday and Cyber Monday deals going on now. With that out of the way, here's that video with 5 common espresso mistakes and tips for beginners. Hey, espresso lovers, Mark here from Whole Latte Love. Today we're going to cover 5 common espresso mistakes and some tips for beginners. You know, even if you're not a beginner, you just want to do a little brush up, stay tuned. You might pick something up here. And I'm going to also tell you about the one word that can really give you away as a newbie to espresso, and that word could also make a barista's head explode, so be careful how you say this word. So coming up, we're going to take a look at water and water quality, what you should know about that. You know, espresso is made mostly of water, so you want to start with a good water quality. You also want to protect your equipment. We'll talk about managing heat on your machine and some things you should know there. We'll talk about filter basket mistakes. You know, a lot of people don't even know what sort of filter basket they're using. There's some very big differences. We're going to talk about dialing in grind size. It's one of the most important aspects of making a really good espresso. And we'll talk about some maintenance basics. Again, you know, we have 1,400 videos, so if you're new, do subscribe to the channel. We're going to cover a lot of techniques, DIY upgrades, repairs, and more, product reviews, all kinds of stuff. So do subscribe and search the channel for the subject matter that you're interested in. Your espresso is mostly made up with water, so you want to start with a good quality water. But what does that really mean? And beyond just flavor, there's considerations with water for the health of your machines. Whether using a real entry-level pressurized brewer like this DeLonghi over here, or something like this dual boiler Bedzera Matrix, you want to put good water through your machine. Now, if you have hard water, you probably already know that. You know, you get the marks in your plumbing fixtures and that kind of thing. So that sort of water, you really don't want to put that into an espresso machine. A lot of times well waters are going to be like that. But if you have softer water, you know, maybe you can use that right out of the tap. Now, some people would like to do some just very basic filtering of that to remove the chlorination. That's always a good idea. And if you're going to use that water right out of the tap, you're almost always going to have to descale. We'll talk more about that when we get into maintenance. But there are other options. So you can use typical, you know, just like typical water softening. That's always an option. Not my preferred option, but it is an option. And you can use filters. Now, be aware that like most of those tap-mounted filters and pitcher filters aren't going to do anything about the minerals, and that's really what we're concerned about. Too many minerals, if you have really hard water, that's going to cause scaling in your machine. So some people say, hey, well, I'll just use pure distilled water or really pure reverse osmosis water. That's not going to be a good idea either, although I do have a solution if that's what you're starting with. Reason being there is that sort of water, you know, water is a really good solvent. Extra pure water like that with no minerals in it, number one, it's going to leave your espresso tasting very flat. but also it's going to over extract it, so it's going to be flat, probably bitter at the same time. Another problem is those ultra pure mineral free waters, they're incredibly good solvents, so they can cause corrosion in your machine of metal components. One reason why you'll never see distilled or reverse osmosis systems using metal pipes. So do be careful of that. Again, we have a solution. One of my favorite ways to treat water is some products from BWT. They have a bunch of options. They have patented ion exchange technology. So what they do is they reduce the calcium level in the water. You keep you at a mineral level by exchanging the calcium with magnesium. So they have these pad filters. So these can drop right into the tank of an espresso machine. So if you have a reservoir machine, you can do that. Then they have what they call the penguin pitcher right here. I use this all the time when I'm working with machines here. It uses a filter here. It's good for about 8 weeks. So you put that in here. It's got that same ion exchange technology. It's a great option. Makes great drinking water too. Now, if you have a plumbed in machine like a dual boiler with a rotary pump, or there's other heat exchange machines that have rotary pumps that can be plumbed in, what I like is the solution right here, the BWT Best Max Premium. It does that ion exchange too. And all of these options are going to have the carbon filtration, so you're going to reduce the chlorine, and you're also going to get rid of the particles. Now, if you have an RO system at home that's making pure water, it's not remineralizing the water in any way, or you just want to go buy distilled water, I do have a video, and I'll link that. I'll put a link right up here for that, on how you can use simple ingredients like baking soda and Epsom salt to create some concentrates that you add to that extra pure water to remineralize it. Now, there are options beyond that. They're really expensive, but you can buy little packets of powders that you add to, say, a gallon or liter of pure distilled or RO water. But you can make that stuff yourself, and I'll link that video for you. Now, one thing I do want to be, a lot of people ask me, can I use a bottled water, like mineral water or, something I'm picking up in the store? And I can't really give you a good answer in that because there's no real standard for the mineral levels in those waters. So if you want to explore and find out the specs of those waters, you could certainly use them. Just look for water that's soft, that's, like not loaded with calcium. So you aren't really going to want to use something like a bottled mineral water for that. Warming things up. It's really important that your equipment is up to temperature before you go to use it. And there's some ways that you can make that happen faster. Just to start though, I have two very different types of machines here. Got this like entry-level appliance grade DeLonghi machine over here. This one's going to warm up really quick. I mean, it's not going to make near the quality espresso as this dual boiler over here can, but it will warm up quick. This one over here, this is a dual boiler. This is a Bezzera Matrix. Two really big boilers in there. Huge hunk of metal out on the front in the form of the brew group here. This one, maybe about 30 minutes to warm up. So what do you want to wake up and have your machine ready to go. So if your machine has a mechanical power switch on it, usually you can hook it up to an appliance grade timer, maybe even a Wi-Fi timer. So you can set a schedule when you want the machine to come on. If you got one of those Wi-Fi ones, you can even turn it off and on remotely. You forgot to turn it off, you can turn it off remotely. Really handy. So you can set a schedule and have the machine ready to go for you. Another thing to notice here is I've got the portafilters locked into both of these machines because we want those warm as well. Not such a big deal over here. The portafilters on this type of machine, they're very lightweight, often made of aluminum. The groups where they're held, they're not putting out a lot of heat, but it'll still warm up. And there's other ways we'll talk about in a second to do that. Very important when we get into the larger prosumer level machines. There's, like on this dual boiler machine on E61 group, it's constantly circulating water out, even if it's just sitting here doing nothing. It's circulating hot water out to this group here. If I touch this, I burn myself, so be careful. But keep the portafilter locked in there, and this gets nice and warm. On a heat exchange machine boiler, where you're creating the water for brewing and for steaming the same boiler, it's incredibly important because that portafilter is part of what removes excess heat out of the boiler. So you do want your equipment warmed up. Now, on a machine like this, or even like this, if you want to speed things up a little bit, you can do what we call blank shots. So you just attach your portafilter, turn the machine on to brew and just run some water through that to help warm it up a little quicker. Again, that timing on this, this one could be ready in a few minutes, but up to 30 minutes on a machine like this dual boiler, maybe in the 15 to 20 minute range for most heat exchange machines to get things warmed up. But that heat, very important if you want to make a really good espresso. Got a bunch of filter baskets here. There's two basic types, singles and doubles, triples of course, but two basic types. So there's pressurized baskets, got a couple of those over here, and non-pressurized baskets. So the pressurized baskets, that's what you're going to find on this entry-level appliance grade type of machine. What they have is one tiny little hole in them that's going to create all the pressure of the espresso brewing process. And that you can get away with using pre-ground coffee. A lot of them can do ESE pods, little white pre-done things that you stick in there. The espresso from those, it's not great from the pre-ground coffee, but it can get you by if you don't want to use a grinder. There's even a couple machines out there like Gaja Classic Pro, which is a full commercial size weight group and portafilter that comes with both. So that Gaja Classic Pro, that's a great machine to start with if you can't get a grinder right away, but you want to get one down the road. So those pressurized baskets, couple of them here, you'll find them in singles and doubles. I know Breville, for instance, on their machines, like most all the Breville machines come with a pressurized basket, and they're going to call them a single wall or dual wall. It's the dual wall ones which are the pressurized basket. Again, with those, grind size is not incredibly critical. The espresso isn't nearly as good as from a non-pressurized basket, but it does allow you to start without a grinder and makes things a little bit easier if you don't really want to dial in a great shot. In the non-pressurized basket world, so I have a single, a double, and a triple here. Depends. Most stock baskets are going to come at the double size. Are going to fit like somewhere between 16 and 18 grams in there. The singles are going to fit like 7, maybe 10. Depends on the manufacturer. I know like for Rancilio, double baskets, they're typical Italian, and the typical Italian dose is about 14 grams for a double. Very few people I know are pulling a 14-gram double. We're usually up around 17, 18, even 19. When you get into triple baskets like these ones, these usually don't come with machines. You have to buy them after the fact. Those can take like right up to 22 grams of coffee. So with these, what I'm going to recommend if you're just starting out, double shots are far easier to pull than single shots are. You'll get much better results. I get asked all the time, how do I do a single? Well, the basic idea with a single is that you're going to use the same timing, that same basic golden rule timing, 20 to 30 seconds from first drip, that you would for a double. And the deal with a single basket is it has a much lower flow rate than a double basket does. But they are much more difficult to get great results with. So if you're just beginning, I'd say start with a double. If you really want to do singles at some point down the road, get down the technique first. Using doubles are just going to be a whole lot easier. And then let's see, what else? Oh, the other one here that you're going to get with some machines, you're going to get what's called a blind basket or a back flush disc. We'll talk more about this in maintenance, but what this is, there's no holes in this, so this is going to go into your portafilter and allow you to do back flushing, but we'll talk more about that coming up. I told you up front I was going to tell you what the most common question I get down in those comments. And I spend a lot of time down there, and I'm more than happy to answer the questions, even if you asked this one. But that question is, hey, Mark, what should I set my grinder at? I saw you doing that video with that grinder, and I have the same one. What setting were you using? Unfortunately, I can't answer that for you because there's a lot of variables involved. So what coffee you're using, how much coffee you're grinding and pulling an espresso from might be a little bit different than mine. And even using the exact same grinder, those numbers are oftentimes just references that aren't going to mean anything, even if somebody's using the exact same grinder as you. So what you really have to do is use this up here and take a look at my video on dialing in grind size. It's incredibly simple. It's really just adjusting the size to vary the flow rate through the coffee. And once you get it, then you're there. Now remember, that's not going to be set and forget because, as your coffee ages or a little variable changes, you may need to make some subtle adjustments. But once you get that down, it's going to be really, really easy. Now, as you do that, you're going to go through all that in the video. But as you do that, remember that consistency is key. So the only thing you want to be changing when you're dialing in is your grind size. So you want to use the same dose weight. When you go to tamp or level your coffee, you want to do it the same way every time. I don't care about tamping pressure, just use the same pressure every time. You want to, again, the same coffee, same dosing weight, same brewing temperature, that kind of thing. So as long as you keep that stuff consistent, as you change that grind size, you're going to see those changes right away, and it's going to be really, really easy to do. So do check out that video and learn how to dial in your grind. And remember, consistency and grind size is never set and forget. Like taking your car to the car wash or changing the oil, maintenance in espresso machines is going to, they're going to help you keep it running well for you for a really long time. So we're going to cover just the real quick basics on maintenance. Coming up, I'm going to tell you what that word is that can make a barista's head explode. So over here, I've got a DeLonghi machine. It's a appliance grade, entry-level machine, pressurized filter basket. This is a machine you'll want to descale. We'll talk more about that in a second, but you also want to keep it clean. So I have, like a commercial-sized portafilter. There's a portafilter on here. If you want to clean this up, the filter baskets, that kind of thing, the go-to product for that is something called Cafizza. It's what I use. It's what pro baristas use. This stuff is just incredible. It's going to remove all those coffee oils, any accumulated crud. So you just soak your portafilters and filter baskets in that for 10, 15 minutes, rinse them off. You're going to be amazed at how clean they come. You can also use that with a brush, kind of brush up in and around the group and help get the gook off up there. After that, with the Cafizza, you're going to do some back flushing. How often you do that? It depends on how much you use your machine. But with Cafizza, you can use that as a back flush. So a little earlier, we took a look at the blind filter basket or the back flush disc here. This goes into your portafilter. Put about maybe 3 grams of that Cafizza in there, and you run a back flush cycle. Now, not every machine should be back flushed. For instance, this machine over here should not. This machine definitely should. What's the difference? 3-way solenoid, no 3-way solenoid over here. So over here, when an extraction is done, you end up with the kind of that soupy mess. There's no mechanism for pulling the water or releasing the pressure off the coffee. When you get to prosumer level machines, even an entry-level premium grade machines like the Gaggia Classic Pro, they do have a 3-way solenoid valve. And the way to know is just look at your machine basically. If you got an E61 group, yeah, definitely you're going to back flush. If you have a machine that's not E61 group, maybe one of the heated Bezzera groups or Gaggia Classic Pro or something like a Rantilio Silvia, they do have the 3-way solenoid valves. You'll know because you're going to get a relatively dry coffee puck out every time. It'll be really easy to knock, and you're also going to see some water deposited somewhere at the end of an extraction, like on a Gaggia Classic Pro. There's a little tube that goes down in the drip tray. On these E61 groups, they blow it off down into the drip tray here, but those you do want to back flush. And that's going to clean out that whole system that removes all of the water and pressure from the coffee at the end of an extraction, keep things clean there. It's important. It's also going to help get those oils that may have accumulated up in the group, but you still want to brush out the groups on these. Again, how often you do that depends on use. If you're using it every day, a few times, maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks. If you're using it all day long, every day in a commercial environment, then you're going to do it daily. If you rarely use your machine, maybe once a month. All right, now let's talk about descaling. Now that's going to, unless you're using a water that's not going to produce scale in the first place, any machine you do, whenever you heat water, you're going to create scale if there's enough minerals in the water of the right variety. So I do have a boiler here that's got some scale in it. This is from a Gaggia Classic, and you can see that's just a buildup of like limestone, honestly. So we're going to use an acid to get rid of that. Do not use vinegar. Please do not use vinegar in your machine. It stinks, it smells. That lime scale is like a sponge. If you don't get it all out, it's going to soak up that vinegar and you're going to have smelly water. What you want to use is either a commercially prepared descaler, and they're usually made of some type of acid. Citric acid is the most common. So I've got a couple here. This is from Ernex. So they have it in powdered or liquid form. It's all pre-measured, ready to go. You mix it with a certain amount of water and then just follow the directions for your machine to do the descaling. We'll talk a little bit about descaling certain types of boilers in a second. I also have Durgall Swiss Espresso. More generic, can be used in any type of boiler, even aluminum boilers. Some people are a little hesitant to use a citric acid descaler in aluminum boilers. I've talk to the chemists at Ernex and they say, no problem using the citric acid, just keep it below 25 minutes of contact time. Now, if you don't want to buy a commercially prepared descaler, which is what I recommend you use what the manufacturer advises you to use. Some don't have a recommendation at all. You can always make your own. You can go out and buy citric acid powder just like this and mix up your own. The only issue with that is, you maybe really don't know exactly how much of this powder to use as opposed to the pre-measured stuff here. But there's plenty of recipes out there on the internet for what to use. I can't vouch for any of them. I've made my own descaler before, but I really just prefer to use this. I will mention that dual boiler machines, you should really have those professionally descaled unless you really know what you're doing. It's tough to get the descaler in and out of the boilers sometimes. But if you're using a single boiler heat exchange machine, we've got videos that'll show you how to do that. But now let's talk about wear items on a machine. And the main one really is the group gasket. And I've got a few here. So it's just like tires on a car. They wear out. The stock ones that come with machines are usually made out of a harder rubber. They wear out over time. So if you're putting your portafilter in and it's cranking way beyond 6 o'clock or you're not getting a good seal, you know it's time to replace that group gasket. I've got some videos on how to do that. It's really easy just to pull them out. There's a couple tricks, but do check out the videos. What I've got here are Cafe Works. These are silicone group gaskets, so they're a whole lot softer than the stock gaskets that come. They're going to last longer. You won't have to crank in as hard. I really do like these a lot. If you want to know which one you should get for your machine, ask me in the comments or search our website. They're really easy to find there. Okay, now I promised at the front of the video I was going to tell you how to make a barista's, or what word would make a barista's head explode. And for most of them, that word is going to be espresso. Espresso. You'll see them wearing shirts that say there's no X in espresso. So if you walk around, saying espresso, their head's going to explode, and you're also going to be looked at as a total newbie because you're not saying it right. So remember, it's espresso. And now, technically, back in the day, I actually looked this up in the New York Times Style Guide. Not that they're the official thing or anything, but they did accept espresso in its written form and pronounce that way as well. So take that for what it is. But if you don't want to be a newbie, just say espresso. All right, so that's the basic stuff. If you have any questions, again, I do spend a lot of time down in those comments. Love helping people out. So use those comments for the questions, and I'd be more than happy to give you an answer. Again, we got those 1,400 videos, so if there's a topic you want to know more about, search our channel, and of course, subscribe. I'm Mark. I do thank you for watching, and I hope to see you back here soon for more of the best on everything coffee, brought to you by Whole Latte Love.